Story 1 of 8. Ben Robert Smith charged with war crimes in Afghanistan, facing 5 murder counts. Ben Robert Smith charged with war crimes in Afghanistan, facing 5 murder counts. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Ben Robert Smith was arrested at Sydney Domestic Airport on April 7, 2026, by Australian Federal Police, AFP, and charged with 5 counts of war crime, murder, relating to alleged killings in Afghanistan between 2009 and 2012. Robert Smith was charged with 1 count of jointly committing murder and 3 counts of aiding, abetting, counselling, or procuring murder, with each charge carrying a maximum penalty of life imprisonment. The alleged incidents occurred in Afghanistan between April 2009 and October 2012, involving unarmed Afghan civilians or detainees who were not taking part in hostilities. Robert Smith was previously found by Federal Court Justice Anthony Besanko in 2023 to have committed war crimes to the civil standard of balance of probabilities in a defamation case against 9 newspapers, which he lost. Robert Smith was granted bail on April 17, 2026, under strict conditions, including surrendering his passport, reporting to police 3 times a week, and not contacting witnesses. But not all outlets told the same story. The Guardian and ABC report that Robert Smith was granted bail on April 17, 2026, while Newscomau and SMH mention the bail hearing was on April 17 but do not specify the exact date of release. Newscomau states Robert Smith was arrested on April 12, 2026, while all other sources confirm the arrest date as April 7, 2026. The Guardian and ABC report that Robert Smith was on the cusp of moving overseas when arrested, but Newscomau does not mention this specific detail. This story was covered by ABC News, The Guardian, news.com.au, SBS News, Sydney Morning Herald and The Age. Story 2 of 8. Australia boosts military drone spending amid global conflicts. Australia boosts military drone spending amid global conflicts. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Australia will invest $12 to $15 billion on drone and counter-drone technologies over the next decade, an increase of $2 to $5 billion from the 2024 National Defence Strategy. Defence Minister Richard Marles cited conflicts in Ukraine and the Middle East as key drivers for increased drone investment, noting drones generate significant asymmetric advantage against larger platforms. The Ghost Bat, MQ-28A, drone, developed by Boeing for the Royal Australian Air Force, costs between $12 to $15 million per unit and has a range of over 3,700 kilometers. The Ghost Shark, an extra-large autonomous underwater vehicle, XLAUV, began development in 2022 for the Royal Australian Navy, with a $1.7 billion investment announced last year. The 2026 National Defence Strategy and Integrated Investment Programme will allocate $8 billion to uncrewed air systems, $4.5 billion to maritime systems, and $2.4 billion to land systems. But not all outlets told the same story. The ABC states the total drone spending increase is $2 to $5 billion, while Newscomau states the total spending over the decade is up to $15 billion without specifying the exact increase from 2024. The Guardian mentions a $2 to $5 billion increase in spending but does not specify the total decade-long budget, while Newscomau states the total allocation is up to $15 billion. The ABC and Newscomau both mention the Ghost Bat's cost range, $12 to $15 million, but only the ABC provides the exact figure of $2.3 billion spent since 2019, which is not confirmed by other sources. This story was covered by ABC News, The Guardian, and news.com.au. Story 3 of 8. Gina Rinehart loses court case over Hope Downs royalties to Wright family. Gina Rinehart loses court case over Hope Downs royalties to Wright family. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Justice Jennifer Smith ruled Wright Prospecting is entitled to 50% of past and future royalties from Hope Downs mines, 1 to 3 tenements, worth hundreds of millions of dollars, backdated to 2007. The Western Australian Supreme Court case involved Gina Rinehart's Hancock Prospecting and Wright Prospecting, descendants of Peter Wright and Lang Hancock, over Hope Downs iron ore tenements. Hope Downs is a joint venture between Hancock Prospecting, 50%, and Rio Tinto, 50%, producing 50 million tons of iron ore annually. Justice Smith dismissed Wright Prospecting's claim to ownership of Hope Downs tenements, ruling Hancock Prospecting retains exclusive ownership. The court case began in 2010, with a trial held in 2023, and the judgment was delivered on April 15, 2026. But not all outlets told the same story. The Guardian and ABC report that Hancock Prospecting will pay Wright Prospecting hundreds of millions in royalties, but Hancock Prospecting claims the amount is $14 million annually, while Wright Prospecting claims up to $900 million. The Guardian states the judgment is a half-win, half-loss for both parties, while Hancock Prospecting's executive director Jay Newby claims it is a clear win for Hancock Prospecting in terms of ownership. ABC reports that Justice Smith found Lang Hancock's actions were fraudulent and dishonest, but Hancock Prospecting's statement claims the court rejected abusive claims of serious wrongdoing against Gina Rinehart. This story was covered by ABC News, The Guardian, news.com.au, Sydney Morning Herald and The Age. Story 4 of 8. Massive fire at Geelong refinery threatens Australia's fuel supply amid global crisis. Massive fire at Geelong refinery threatens Australia's fuel supply amid global crisis. Here's what every outlet agrees on. A fire broke out at Viva Energy's Corio refinery in Geelong, Victoria, on April 15, 2026, around 11:05 p.m. local time, following multiple reports of explosions and flames. The refinery supplies 50% of Victoria's fuel and 10% of Australia's total fuel supply, with a capacity to process up to 120,000 barrels of oil per day. Firefighters from Fire Rescue Victoria, FRV, and the Country Fire Authority, CFA, battled the blaze for approximately 13 hours, with the fire declared under control by around 12:11 p.m. on April 16, 2026. The fire was contained to a 30-metre by 30-metre area and primarily affected the motor gasoline, section of the refinery, which combines LPG into gasoline-type molecules. No injuries or deaths were reported among workers or firefighters, though the fire caused significant damage to equipment and infrastructure. But not all outlets told the same story. The Guardian and news.com.au state that the fire caused no immediate impact on fuel supply, while the ABC and The Age suggest there may be a short-term impact on petrol production and prices. The ABC and news.com.au report that the fire was caused by a mechanical fault in the alkylation unit, but The Guardian and The Age do not explicitly mention this specific cause, only referring to equipment failure. The Guardian and news.com.au claim that the fire will not lead to fuel rationing, while news.com.au also states that Viva Energy expects to replace lost production through imports, but the ABC notes that the government is scrambling to secure additional fuel imports due to the fire. This story was covered by ABC News, The Guardian, news.com.au, SBS News, Sydney Morning Herald and The Age. Story 5 of 8. Australia's Albanese government considers capital gains tax reforms, housing exemptions, and NDIS changes. Australia's Albanese government considers capital gains tax reforms, housing exemptions, and NDIS changes. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Anthony Albanese confirmed the government is mulling policy changes beyond housing supply, including potential capital gains tax, CGT, reforms, amid pressure from One Nation and rising inequality concerns. The current 50% CGT discount for assets held over 1 year is widely discussed as a potential target for reform, with financial journalist Alan Kohler stating it is more than it needs to be to adjust for inflation and contributes to inequality by favouring capital income over labour income. Treasurer Jim Chalmers described the 2026-27 budget as potentially a tax reform budget and hinted at changes to the CGT system, though the final decision is delayed due to uncertainty from the Middle East war. The Business Council of Australia urged the government to exempt new homes from any CGT scaling back to avoid disincentivising housing investment. The McKell Institute proposed a CGT reform model with a 70% discount for new homes and 35% for old homes, estimating it would boost housing supply by 1.2%, 130,000 extra homes by 2030, and be grandfathered for existing properties. But not all outlets told the same story. Article 1 states Albanese flagged the prospect of boosting spending on incentives for state and territory governments to achieve housing targets, while Article 3 does not mention this specific incentive spending. Article 1 claims Albanese hinted at a potential overhaul of the NDIS scheme, but Article 2 does not reference NDIS changes at all. Article 1 includes a quote from Albanese saying you don't change that by rhetoric and by dividing people, which is what is some of the populist rhetoric, while Article 2 uses a nearly identical quote without attribution to a specific source. This story was covered by ABC News and news.com.au. Story 6 of 8. NSW court strikes down protest law, complicating Min's globalise the intifada ban plans. NSW court strikes down protest law, complicating Min's globalise the intifada ban plans. Here's what every outlet agrees on. NSW Court of Appeal struck down an anti-protest law on April 17, 2026, ruling it unconstitutionally burdened freedom of political communication. The law was introduced after the Bondi Beach terror attack and gave police power to restrict marches, including the anti-Hazorg rally in February 2026. The Court of Appeal ruled that protecting social cohesion from upsetting, inflammatory, and divisive speech is not a legitimate constitutional purpose. NSW Premier Chris Minns previously announced plans to ban the phrase "globalise the intifada" in December 2025, citing it as hateful and divisive. A NSW parliamentary inquiry in January 2026 recommended banning "globalise the intifada" only when used to incite hatred, harassment, intimidation, or violence, not an outright ban. But not all outlets told the same story. The Guardian states that 26 protesters have been charged, while the ABC does not mention a specific number of charges but refers to 2 protesters charged in Queensland. The Guardian explicitly states that the NSW Court of Appeal ruled on April 17, 2026, while the ABC does not specify the exact date of the ruling but refers to it as occurring on Thursday, likely April 17. The Guardian mentions that the NSW government referred the matter to a lower house committee, which recommended considering legislation, while the ABC does not mention the committee's recommendation explicitly. This story was covered by ABC News and The Guardian. Story 7 of 8. Daniel Kinahan, alleged Irish mob boss, arrested in UAE for extradition to Ireland. Daniel Kinahan, alleged Irish mob boss, arrested in UAE for extradition to Ireland. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Daniel Kinahan, alleged leader of the Kinahan organised crime group, was arrested in Dubai on the 15th of April, 2026. The arrest followed an Irish court-issued extradition warrant for alleged serious organised crime offences. The arrest was made under the bilateral extradition agreement between Ireland and the UAE, signed in 2025. Dubai police issued an arrest warrant within 48 hours of receiving the judicial file from Irish authorities. Irish Justice Minister Jim Kinahan confirmed the arrest follows his request for extradition to face charges in Ireland. But not all outlets told the same story. The Guardian does not mention a $5 million US bounty, while Newscomau explicitly states it was offered by the American government since 2022. Newscomau specifies Kinahan's age as 48, while The Guardian describes him as in his late 40s without a precise age. This story was covered by The Guardian and news.com.au. Story 8 of 8. Iran reopens Strait of Hormuz temporarily amid Lebanon ceasefire and US-Iran tensions. Iran reopens Strait of Hormuz temporarily amid Lebanon ceasefire and US-Iran tensions. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Iran declared the Strait of Hormuz completely open to commercial shipping on April 17, 2026, following the Lebanon ceasefire. The ceasefire in Lebanon began on April 17, 2026, after Israel and Hezbollah agreed to a 10-day truce. US President Donald Trump welcomed Iran's announcement but stated the US naval blockade on Iran would remain until our transaction with Iran is 100% complete. Iran's Foreign Minister, Abbas Araghchi, announced the Strait of Hormuz would be open for the remaining period of the ceasefire, limited time. Iran stated that military vessels are still banned from the Strait of Hormuz, and commercial vessels may require permission from Iranian military. But not all outlets told the same story. Iran stated the Strait of Hormuz would be open only for the remaining period of the ceasefire, but Trump claimed Iran had agreed to never close the Strait of Hormuz again. Iran said commercial vessels would need permission from its military to pass, but Trump did not mention this requirement in his statements. The ABC and Newscomau report that Israel conducted strikes entire minutes before the ceasefire, but only ABC provides the specific death toll of 13 people and 6 destroyed buildings. This story was covered by ABC News, news.com.au, and SBS News.